G'day, wrestling mates. You're on the Southern Joe Wrestling Show with your wrestling mate, Southern Joe. To those that did view my first virtual studio recording, episode 2, thank you very much. And I even got a couple of likes, so that's encouraging. No dislikes, which is even more encouraging. We're building small steps. Today's episode is Can All Elite Wrestling be fixed? Can it be saved? I'll give you my answer, but just let you know that I'm treating this like a Chinese bamboo tree, this particular channel. The Chinese bamboo tree spends 3 or 4 years just being a little seed and a little seedling, and then all of a sudden, in its 4th or 5th year, it grows 90 meters tall in 1 year. So that's what I'm hoping for with this. If not, well, this is just a passion project anyway. So, can All Elite Wrestling be fixed? The answer obviously is yes. And it's probably not so much broken, it's just probably a little bit verschimmeled, a little bit out of whack. And things can be done to save it because the product is decent. They've got a lot of good wrestlers with a lot of experience, a lot of backstage people with a lot of experience, like your Dean Malenko's and even Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross, who work in the backstage when they can. Jerry Lynn, all who are phenomenal people from the wrestling business who have been there for the highs and the lows. Now, the first thing with fixing All Elite Wrestling, the first clue is in the title of the video and also how I've been talking about All Elite Wrestling. And that's not to say AEW anymore, because AEW it's the first thing that makes it sound like a WWE light. Also, too, All Elite Wrestling is better sounding. It's a bold name, All Elite. It means that it's all killer, no filler, as they say. All Elite. And it's even really good that when someone signs up, they say, oh, such and such a wrestler is now All Elite. It's a very positive message, and it's better than just a set of letters. And especially with saying All Elite, pardon me, and getting the announcers to say the same, it takes it away from that niche sort of thing, like what TNA and ECW were, where people just chant ECW, ECW, or TNA, TNA. And they do that with All Elite Wrestling, with AEW. When you think about it, as big as the WWE is, when have you ever had anyone said WWF, WWF, or WWE? Would have even been worse when it was Worldwide Wrestling Federation. The WWE have had a big history and they're built up over time, and they market themselves as good as any company on the planet, much like what McDonald's are a fantastic marketer, much like Microsoft, much like any of those really big billion dollar companies. For all the faults that the WWE have, and nothing is perfect, no company is perfect, they have done a phenomenal job where they're now worth, 9, 10 or 12 billion or whatever they say. Whereas All Elite Wrestling, okay, they've started with $100 million investment, which is no chump change. But if you're comparing it to where the WWE is, pardon me, I'm sorry, if you're comparing it to where WWE is, they have half a century worth of work to go by. And I'm going to talk more about that in a moment. And so it doesn't reek of a mainstream, it reeks of niche. And really, with All Elite, you don't want it to be niche. You want it to be part of a mainstream vernacular where they can get, because there is only a limited number of disposable income, a limited amount of disposable income that people have to spend. And if you want them to spend with All Elite, you're going to have to make your product tighter, better, and a decent alternative without being a joke to the WWE. because otherwise people will go spend their money on WWE. Or Vince McMahon never used to worry about other companies, other wrestling companies. He always worried about how he was going up against Monday Night Football or the latest movie of the week or whatever else, because entertainment dollars are entertainment dollars. Whether you're spending it on going to a football game, a basketball game, the theater, going dancing, gambling, pro wrestling, whatever it is, there's only a finite number for most people if they have disposable income at all, especially this climate. So all elite wrestling have to focus on that and not just focus on WWE and not just focus on things just being their passion project. To that end, they need to brighten their production. Don't make it just some sort of glorified indie show. At the moment, it does look quite decent, but I believe they can improve it even a bit more, where they can just change the colouring a little bit to be commercially more pleasing, so they can get more advertisers, but not just a copy of WWE. Now, there'll be a fine line between doing that, but I believe that it can be done. And to that end, cut down on the silly skits. Yeah, don't have vignettes and so forth. That's WWE stuff. And while they've been successful with that, anyone else that does that is just going to be a copycat of the WWE. And people say, well, why are we watching the copycat when we can watch the original? And yeah, with a lot of the skits that All Elite have been doing lately, it does make them look like WWE light, and they need to avoid that. They need to be a good alternative and more sports-based like they promised, because Tony Khan promised a sports-based sports entertainment alternative to the WWE. And while they've given that in some instances, in others, they've failed spectacularly. To that end, promos should only be done in-ring, backstage, or on the entrance ramp. Nothing pre-recorded, all live, and the announcer must always hold the mic because it's an interview style thing, and that works. I saw that interview. I don't know who it was with, but Tony Schiavone had one of the bad guys take his microphone away. And I think he did an ironic thing about how pissed off he was by pretending to still speak into the mic, which, while it was funny, I think secretly he didn't really want that to happen because it's not the way he was brought up in the wrestling business. And I pretty much agree with him, because then it ceases to be an interview. You know, you don't see someone kick off the Tonight Show host like Jimmy Fallon and sit in his desk and while he just goes off to catering. It takes away from the show, and it takes away from that sports-based element that All Elite Wrestling was promising us. Keep up the variety of matches, but make sure that all matches and all promos for that matter are watertight when it comes to believability. Really, as I keep saying, All Elite purports to be sports-based, and they do that with tournaments, which I don't believe work in wrestling. But if you're going to do it, then do it and stick to formulas, rankings, and so forth. So if you're going to do sports-based, do the sports-based. And yeah, you can have comedy in there, but make the comedy believable, where everyone's believability and credibility are kept intact. The best comedy is not the one that puts someone down unnecessarily, especially when it's someone in your own company, because you need to build up as many strong characters. One thing with WWE, no matter what you think of some of their talent, when you look at their Cody Rhodes, CM Punk, the members of the Bloodline, even down to Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Drew McIntyre, AJ Styles, there's probably a few I'm missing. But the point is, Yeah, look at how many of them could easily slot into a main event of any company anywhere in the world. If even one or two of those guys came to All Elite, straight away they would be in the main event without a doubt. So you really need to build up the stars. MJF has been building it up by himself. The Acclaimed were building themselves up with their raps and their in-ring performance, and they're only just starting to come back and hit their stride again. When someone's hot, keep them hot until they do cool, or as they cool off, then maybe let them go away for a little bit and rebuild themselves. But you really need the all elite people need to really focus on building up the stars, building up the stories, because that's what us fans really crave for, and make them all watertight, believable. Make it so not even Jim Cornette and Brian Last or others or Vince Russo or anyone else or Eric Bischoff, any of those, making sure they can't even poke holes in it. And if they are, well, they're being exposed themselves. And I like all those guys, except I'm not much of a Vince Russo fan. He gives me the irrits, I'll be honest. But all the best to him. Um, and build up the feuds with proper storytelling, having a short, long term, short, medium, and long term feud storytelling. Make them believable, make them solid, make them based in reality and not some sort of silly fiction, and make it so they are watertight. And cut down on the number of titles. My goodness, nearly every match on the card is for a title. You don't need that many, because if you have that many titles, it's like an Oprah Winfrey show. There's a title for you. There's a title for you. It's it doesn't work, and it makes the titles meaningless. When you look at other legitimate sports, they're either going for one title only, like if it's a team sport like the NBA. NBA don't have, well, they have their conference champions and that, but that means nothing compared to winning the big prize. When the WWE had the glory days in the 80s and 90s, all they survived on was world champions, world tag champions, and intercontinental champion. NWA, WCW did pretty much the same sort of thing with just a world title, US title, and the world tag champions. Yeah, you can have like a cruiserweight type title if you want, but no more than that. No more of this. Oh, and WWE are guilty of this as well, because they've got a Raw champion and a SmackDown champion, and it's just a silliness. And make Ring of Honor, Tony, you own Ring of Honor, make that a developmental federation like NXT. Ring of Honor is, I don't know what it is at the moment, because it doesn't have its own show. It has its own pay per views. And then sometimes you get them mixing in with all elite shows like Rampage and Dynamite. No, make it its own specific federation, even if it's at the moment it has to be on doing the Rampage show, or even if it's only um, a YouTube show like what Dark and Elevation were. It would be a good way of getting the up and comers to be ready for the main roster, like NXT does and like OVW did back in the 90s. And yeah, remember that WWE has at least half a century head start, even longer if you count Vince's grandfather, Jesse, having a New York promotion that started in the Depression era and went until the 50s, when Vince McMahon Sr. started Capital Sports. Now, the difference between All Elite and WCW is that WCW is a continuation of the Jim Crockett / NWA lineage. So there is a lineage there, but AEW or All Elite Wrestling doesn't have a lineage to go by. So they are forming a legacy, which in a lot of cases they are, but in major cases they're not. This is the legacy that they need to focus on Otherwise, they could be they run the risk of becoming TNA LOL. And you need to bring in enforcers backstage who will regulate how the younger talent work and give them powers to even fire people. Okay, I'm still yet to work out how Tony Khan's life was threatened because there's with the CM Punk situation, and be open and honest with the public. If something has happened, say exactly what happened, but from an independent source. Don't have it from biased viewpoints that have agendas if they do, because you got to stop the leaks to the dirt sheets as well, because the conflicting reports make people turn off wrestling and not even watch it. I don't watch the product religiously as much as I used to anymore, because between the fake rubbish, between the non-believability, and a lot of sloppy work as well, I don't watch it. Tighten up your work, tighten up your storylines, tighten up your believability. And yeah, you'll get me back and you'll get a lot of others back as well. That's really what you do. Most of all, stop making direct references to the WWE. It is unnecessary and just brings attention to the WWE. It doesn't make you sound all clever. You can make a little snide remark if you want. Some of them are pretty good and make a few people's compilation tapes, like when they say, "Oh, when all elite wrestlers mention the WWE," when they do it indirectly. But if you do it directly and say, "Oh yes, when I was in the WWE, I won the Intercontinental title and I was this and that," no. Why do that? Why do that? You're in the All Elite. Focus on All Elite. It's a separate world. WWE never worried. Even when CM Punk was taking viewers off WWE, WWE weren't even referencing CM Punk. It was like, well, he didn't exist. Maybe he went off. Maybe he went off to start a bakery or something. Maybe he went off to MMA. Who knows? They didn't worry about him, even though he was becoming the most talked about wrestler in all of wrestling. Okay, now they've got him, and he still is one of the most talked about wrestlers. But now's the time that they will talk about him rather than somebody else, because then you're doing WWE's job for them, and they don't need the help. They're doing a pretty big job, a pretty good job marketing wise. I'm not, product is subjective, but you can always tell the quality of a product, regardless of whether you like a storyline, whether you like the fact that Rock and Roman are going to face each other at WrestleMania 40, whether you like the fact that MJF is still playing on the thing that he might go to WWE. All of that is a subjective thing, but if you can get people talking for the right reasons, at the moment, people are talking about WWE for, well, last week they're talking about the wrong reasons, because obviously because of the lawsuit. But if you can take advantage and get people to talk about All Elite Wrestling for the right reasons, saying, "Oh, wasn't that a great match last night?" Not only wasn't that a great match last night, it was very believable. Those guys look like they want to maul each other. But also, too, oh, wasn't that a great promo that wrestler cut, that MJF cut? Or, oh, geez, I didn't know that Kenny Omega had that sort of promo in him, or somebody else, or the Hardys, or whoever. Build them up. You need to build them up. You need to make it believable. I can't stress it enough. I reckon that's enough talk from me. These are my viewpoints from someone who's been following wrestling for over half a century. I'm going to be 60 in a few days in February. As the time I record this in early February 2024, I'll be about to turn 60, which means it'll be about 54. malfunction. Yes, off. Remember to press the subscribe and ring the notification bell so you get updates. Spread the word around to all your wrestling mates. This is your wrestling mate, Southern Joe. If I've earned a like as well, give me a like. See you later. Hooroo.